There are so many animated films out there. In Europe alone, over 55 animated movies are produced on average every year. However, for every Lion King, Spirited Away, or Spider-Verse, there tends to be a lot of equally great films that just go under the radar for one reason or another. In my last video discussing why animation should be respected as an art form, I brought up a few more underrated pieces of animation towards the end, that I feel most general audiences might not know about. A lot of you seem to like this, so today I wanted to go through a list of animated films that I personally find very underrated and that I think you should watch. There are some films on this list from more prominent animation studios like Disney that I find are often overlooked in their more wide catalog of films, but I've also included a lot of foreign and independent animated films since there's tons of amazing animated films that especially go unnoticed outside of American animation. I hope you can perhaps find a new favorite animated film from this list that you might have not known about before. To start, let's look at Disney and talk about a few of their animated films that I actually find to be very underrated. First up, Meet the Robinsons. This is a film that I actually feel like has seen a lot more of a resurgence in the past few years since I've seen a lot more people discussing it overall, but it hasn't quite broken into the more mainstream Disney territory, sort of like something like a Goofy movie has. But honestly, this is legitimately one of Disney's best films in my opinion, just for how much it stands out from the rest of their catalog with its incredibly unique time travel premise and very 1950s retro-influenced aesthetic. But even with its extremely unique design, this film still contains just as much heart as you'd expect from any Disney film, and even uses a quote from Walt Disney himself as the main message it bears: keep moving forward. The film focuses on young orphan Louis, who lives at an orphanage and hopes to be adopted, but his hyperfixation on creating inventions often scares off potential parents for him. He ends up creating an invention called the Memory Scanner in hopes of finding his biological mom, who left him on the doorstep to the orphanage when he was a baby. He shows off this invention at his local science fair, but through shenanigans involving another boy named Wilbur, he ends up being transported to the future, where he meets an entire eccentric family of amazing people called the Robinsons. Along the way, Louis learns to put his past behind him and be happy with who he is in the present, and keep moving forward to a brighter future. I don't want to say too much about the story specifically in this film in case you haven't already seen it, since I think it does provide some genuinely nice surprises, and it's just a very well thought out, incredibly heartfelt film overall. It has a really great, very quirky, specific kind of humor that might not be everyone's cup of tea, but personally, I've always found this film really funny. The message this movie bears about shaping your own future and being happy with who you are is so earnest and comes off incredibly genuine throughout the entirety of it, and it's surprisingly a very powerful film overall. All in all, Meet the Robinsons is a fantastic animated film that I'm really glad seems to be getting much more of a spotlight lately as an underrated gem that deserves way more love than it got at release. If you have not seen it already, please go watch it, you will not regret it. Another Disney animated film that I actually find really underrated, which might come as a shock to some people, are the anthology films Fantasia and Fantasia 2000. I'm going to be grouping these two specifically together since I think it's worth discussing both films as a pair. Now, you might be wondering, how is Fantasia underrated? It's an incredibly iconic film, and both the Sorcerer's Apprentice sequence and Night on Bald Mountain have cemented themselves in the greater Disney pantheon. Well, when Fantasia came out initially back in 1940, it actually wasn't very well liked by critics at all, and bombed financially due to releasing during World War II. While at the time, Walt Disney had made a name for himself by producing simple yet effective animated features that could appeal to any age group, Fantasia was blasted for appearing far too pretentious and reaching for excellence, sort of similar to how other cinephile films like 2001: A Space Odyssey were first viewed when they were released, before ending up being very influential to film overall. In a very similar way, Walt Disney himself ended up disowning Fantasia after its release thanks to the initial reception from critics, but over time after its release, it gradually ballooned in reputation, eventually being considered one of the greatest films of all time, even outside of animation. Heck, Fantasia has even been an influence on live-action films such as E.T. and even Doctor Strange. Because of its resurgence in popularity throughout the 20th century, Disney eventually made a sequel to the film called Fantasia 2000, which was meant to continue the original's idea of pairing brilliant animated segments with classical music. While it was notable for being the first animated film shown in IMAX and also received critical praise, it was also unfortunately a financial failure, much like the first Fantasia. As a result, plans for a third Fantasia film were scrapped, and I feel like the brand has been somewhat forgotten today in the greater Disney pantheon overall. To me though, these films really represent Disney at the height of their creativity, and I don't think there's really been anything else quite like them. If you haven't seen either film before, please go watch them. You will absolutely not regret it. The last film I want to discuss in terms of Disney specifically is actually Atlantis: The Lost Empire. In the early 2000s, Disney experimented with making two science fiction adventures, that being Treasure Planet and Atlantis. Treasure Planet is actually a film that's been creeping more into the public consciousness lately from what I've seen, with Disney now even promoting it on their social media, but I feel like Atlantis has still been somewhat forgotten, which is really unfortunate because I absolutely adore this movie. It's set apart from a large majority of other Disney films by being an Indiana Jones style diesel punk adventure that's more aimed at a slightly older demographic than your average Disney flick. The entire cast throughout this film is absolutely phenomenal, and honestly probably one of the best casts in any Disney film. I've already talked about this film a bit in a previous video, so I'll keep this relatively brief, but if you haven't seen Disney's Atlantis, definitely go watch it. It's a fantastic, action-packed thrill ride with so much heart to it, and Disney will never make a film like this ever again. Now, moving on from Disney, I want to discuss some foreign stuff. While making this video, a lot of you all suggested different animated films from other countries for me to look at, one of which was Night on the Galactic Railroad, an anime film released in 1985 based on a Japanese children's book about two cats named Giovanni and Cabanella taking a train to heaven. The film has an incredibly cute aesthetic to it, with the cats being really appealing to look at, but it also deals with some very heavy themes, specifically regarding religion and death. Throughout the entirety of the train ride, there are many symbols shown from both Buddhism and Christianity. The film has a very charming tone to it, but also rather somber too, with it asking a lot of questions about how we choose to live life and the impact we make on those around us. It's a very trippy, but also a very profound film. Interestingly enough, the book this film was based on was actually written by its author on a train he was riding after the death of his sister, which definitely explains why both the film and the book explore a lot of existentialist themes. There isn't really a film like this out there, and it's truly an experience to behold. I highly recommend you check this one out, even if just to give it a shot. Another foreign film that was recommended was Robot Dreams, which, oh my gosh, please bring tissues if you plan to watch this one. I did not expect this film to be just as genuinely heart-wrenching as it was. This film is a Spanish-French co-production that actually came out pretty recently, having come out back in 2023 and received massive acclaim upon its release. Robot Dreams is the story of Dog, a loner who wants somebody in his life to be by his side and accompany him wherever he goes, so he ends up ordering a robot, who, of course, quickly becomes his best friend. They do absolutely everything together, and Dog's life feels a lot more full of color than it had been before now that he has Robot by his side. However, one day at the beach, he and Robot go for a swim, and Robot rusts completely, forcing Dog to leave him on the beach for an entire year. This film had some genuinely just devastating moments, despite appearing incredibly cute and charming on the surface, so I don't really want to say too much about it in fear of spoiling it, but I will say definitely prepare yourself emotionally, because I sure didn't when I watched it. This film is the perfect blend of charm and raw emotion, and I really did love getting to watch it for the first time for this video. Very much recommend it. Another one I got to see for the first time for this video was actually another very recent foreign animated film, that being Memoir of a Snail, which actually just came out last year. This is an Australian animated film from the same director as Mary and Max, so I was already excited to finally get to check this out. And needless to say, it did not disappoint point at all. The film is about two siblings named Grace and Gilbert who are separated from each other at a young age after their father dies in his sleep. Grace is sent off to live with foster parents who are admittedly relatively nice to her, but not really around for her due to being swingers. Gilbert, however, gets it even worse off and is forced to live with an incredibly cruel group of religious fundamentalists who speak in tongues and abuse him. As time goes by, Gilbert sends letters to Grace telling her he is going to escape his awful foster parent situation and come find her so they can be together again. Meanwhile, Grace meets an elderly woman named Pinky who gives her advice for starting anew in her life and not being clouded by past trauma or struggles and quite literally coming out of her snail shell. This is such an emotional movie from beginning to end, but just like Mary and Max, still has a very charming, quirky sense of humor to it too. It taps into overcoming past trauma so well, showing Grace slowly coming to accept herself for who she is and putting aside all the names she's been called in the past and the expectations that have been thrust upon her before. Showing it all as a very gradual process, which is honestly very realistic. Overcoming trauma isn't an easy thing to do at all. And oftentimes it can just take years upon years to find the confidence to truly move forward, so I really commend this film for showing this in such a raw, authentic way. I highly recommend checking this out if you have not already. It is utterly fantastic. I really want to check out more of Adam Elliott's work now, since he's really proven his ability to tell deeply resounding stories, just through the medium of stop motion in my opinion. Speaking of stop motion, another fantastic underrated stop motion film you really need to watch is ParaNorman from the great stop motion animation studio Laika, which, funny enough, is actually local to me, since they're housed here in Oregon. This is the studio that did stop motion animation for Corpse Bride, and then went on to create their own branded animated features, making a huge splash with their first animated feature, the very well-received Coraline, which came out in 2009. However, ParaNorman was their second animated feature ever and released directly after Coraline in 2012, so I kind of feel like it doesn't really get talked enough about at all, which is really a shame in my opinion because it's just as great as Coraline to me and also genuinely scary at several moments. The film follows young Norman Babcock, an 11-year-old boy who is misunderstood by pretty much everyone around him due to his ability to see ghosts and talk to them. However, upon finding out about a curse that he must save his town from, it falls to him to stop an evil witch named Aggie and her ability to raise the living dead. It's later revealed in the film that the reason why the town is cursed to begin with is because the town council from over 100 years ago actually mistook Aggie as a witch, when in actuality she was a medium. And in fact, the zombies that have been chasing Norman and his friends throughout the entire film are actually the old town council resurrected from the dead, wanting to atone for their mistake with Aggie. As a result, Norma is able to speak to Aggie and relate to her struggle of not feeling accepted and feeling like an outcast from society, allowing both her and the old town council to finally be able to be at peace and move on. This film is absolutely incredible in my opinion. It has a really well done message on accepting those around you for who they are and being happy being yourself. I do think this film has really been overshadowed when it comes to other stop-motion animation films such as The Nightmare Before Christmas or Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit. It's a surprisingly dark but incredibly genuine film, and if you haven't seen it already, definitely go watch it. And now, for my final recommendation for an underrated animated film, a film that actually just came out this year, believe it or not, and I would already say has been very misunderstood and already could be considered pretty underrated, that being Colorful Stage the movie, A Miku Can't Sing, aka the Hatsune Miku movie. I initially saw the trailer for this last year and was immediately intrigued to see what a Hatsune Miku film would be like, since while not a Miku diehard, I've always been kind of fascinated with the history behind the character, since despite technically starting life as a piece of audio software made by Yamaha to be sold to sound designers and amateur musicians, Miku herself kind of took on a whole personality of her own and now performs live to sold out concerts as the world's biggest digital musician. And she also even met the Beatles and got geeked out over by Germa for a high five. Wow, life be unreal.
Okay, just do it normally. Oh yeah, bye.
So as a casual enjoyer of Hatsune Miku, I was really curious to see this film, but I had no idea to absolutely end up loving it by the end. and especially really resonating with the message this film puts out into the world. Interestingly enough, this film technically is tied into the story of a mobile game featuring Hatsune Miku and other Vocaloid characters called Hatsune Miku Colorful Stage. I actually had no idea this game even existed going into the movie because, again, I wasn't really familiar with all the lore surrounding Hatsune Miku and also all the other Vocaloids she performs with. But that really didn't matter at all since this film absolutely floored me from beginning to end, and how real it gets diving into depression and feeling hopeless in your attempts to reach others and hopefully inspire them to do what they love. The movie centers on 5 different groups of young singers who are all going about their lives making music they love and sharing with people around them. However, one day, each of these groups individually encounters an unusual variation on Hatsune Miku, one who isn't confident in her singing ability, since she tries to sing to people around her that she sees are depressed or struggling to find the motivation to pursue their passions, but she doesn't seem to reach them at all, and is just viewed as mere noise by them. She enlists the help of these musical groups to try and help her find the confidence to make songs that reach people that she wants to reach and inspire them, which they do. However, even after being filled with the courage to try and spread her song to these people to inspire them, they all tell Miku to shut up and go away, causing her to fall into deep depression. Because of this, the 5 groups decide they all need to join forces to spread the song that Miku wanted to share with the world far and wide to remind Miku that she did make an impact and also carry on the work that she was trying to do to uplift others. As a result, Miku slowly starts to realize that what she was doing did make an impact, even though she didn't realize it, because what she did reached these people, and she inspired them to try and put her song out into the world, and this brings her back, now fully realizing what she was doing really did make a difference, in a way that she didn't even realize. It's a relatively simple story, but man, does it really pack in the emotions. I did not expect this film to get as real as it did concerning mental health, and feeling hopeless in your efforts to try and bring good to those around you. The message this film carries resonates on such a personal level for anyone that is a creative type or just wants to inspire others to do what they love. For me personally, this is something I've always strived to do. Whenever I make a video or a post, or whenever I create anything, as silly as it might sound, I do have the hope that I'll be able to make a difference in someone's life. Whether that's just making them want to check out a piece of underrated media, or even just make them smile or learn something they might have not known before. It's a very easy thing for me, or anyone in a creative position overall I'd say, to worry if our voice is being heard by those who need it, or if people are even listening at all. But oftentimes, I found the people that I didn't expect to need to hear what I have to say at all are very often the people who tell me they've needed to hear it the most. Even if I can just make one person smile or learn something new by the end of my day, that's all I really need. And this movie really reminded me of that. And hey, if Miku can remind me of that, then I'm more than happy to remind you to pursue your passions too. Never stop pursuing your passions or your art, even if you don't think anyone is listening. A big quality we have as human beings is the ability to create art that resonates with others and inspires them to create art as a result. And the Miku movie really embodies that. Please go see this wonderful film in theaters while you still can. It's an absolute triumph both emotionally and visually, with some absolutely fantastic musical numbers that are really best experienced in a theater. I cannot recommend this one enough, and I really hope more people start to appreciate this film more too. Sinners was absolutely great too, but for me, this is the movie of the year. Overall, there are a lot of great animated films that just so happen to fly under the radar for one reason or another. I hope there is at least one film in this list that you might want to check out now, and who knows, maybe it'll become a newfound favorite for you. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun going through these films, and if you have any suggestions for animated media for me to check out in the future, be sure to leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe since I pretty much cover film and animation here overall. So if you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy the other videos I have planned as well. You can also check out my Discord as well to suggest media for me to cover here on YouTube in the future and also connect with like-minded individuals overall. You can also check out my letterbox, which is linked down below, and I cover movies and shows, oftentimes movies and shows I won't review here on YouTube on that platform. All my links are down in the description. But regardless, thank you so much for watching this video. I've been Otterly Noah, and I'll see you on the Otter's side. Bye!